Uh, Hi everyone. Hope you're all having a good day. For today's discussion leadership, the topic that has been given to me is semiotics, and let's dive right in. So, what is semiotics? So semiotics is also known as semiotic studies or semiology. It is the study of signs and symbols and their meanings, interpretations, and the use in human communication. It is a broad field that encompasses various disciplines, including linguistics, philosophy, psychology, anthropology, communication studies. And semiotics seeks to understand how meaning is created and conveyed through signs and symbols, which can include anything from words and gestures to images and sounds. So it explores how these signs and symbols are used in different contexts and cultures, and how they can be interpreted in multiple ways by different people. So some of the key concepts in semiotics include sign, signifier, signified, code, and discourse. A sign is anything that communicates meaning, while a signifier is the physical or visual component of a sign, and the signified is the meaning of what that sign represents. Code refers to the system of rules and conventions that govern the use of signs and symbols within a particular culture or context, while discourse refers to the large cultural or social context in which signs and symbols are used and interpreted. And semiotics is used in a wide range of fields, from advertising and marketing to literature, art, criticism, and also has been applied to various aspects of human communication, including language, gestures, body language, even music and architecture as well. Some of the history, let's dive into the history of semiotics. The history of semiotics can be traced back to ancient times when people began to use signs and symbols to communicate. And however, the modern field of semiotics, as we know it in today, emerged in the late 19th and the early 20th century with the works of several influential scholars. One of the earliest pioneers of semiotics was Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist who is often referred to as the father of modern linguistics. Saussure's key contribution to semiotic was his concept of sign, which he defined as a combination of signifier and the signified. Another important figure in the development of semiotic was Charles Sanders Peirce, an American philosopher and a mathematician who coined the term semiotics and developed a tripartite model of the sign that includes the sign itself, the object, and the interpretant. Peirce's work also emphasized the importance of context in the interpretation of the signs. Of the science. And in the mid 20th century, the structuralism emerged as a dominant approach within semiotics. So scholars like Roland Barthes, Claude Levi-Strauss, then Roman Jacobson emphasized the underlying structures and the systems governing signs and symbols. The structuralist semiotics focused on analyzing code and patterns in language, literature, and culture, and sought to uncover the deeper meanings and structure underlying the human communication. In more recent years, semiotics have evolved to encompass a broader range of perspectives and approaches, including post-structural cultural studies, cognitive semiotics, and today's semiotic remains a vibrant and interdisciplinary field that continues to explore the complex ways in which signs and symbols shape our understanding of the world around us. Looking deeper into Saussure's definition of sign, Ferdinand de Saussure was a Swiss linguistic who widely recognized as one of the founders of modern linguistics, and in his work course in general linguistics, he proposed a theory of sign, which is still influential in the field of semiotics today. Saussure defines sign as the sign is the whole that results from the association of the signifier with the signified. Right? So, according to Saussure, a sign is composed of two parts, that is, the signifier and the signified. and all the signs have a signifier and signified, and the signifier is the material form of the sign. And this is the element that we can see, that we can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell. And in other words, this is a physical form of the sign. For example, think of a red flag that has been used to indicate danger, and the red flag can be used described as a signifier, because we can see it, we can touch it. So it is something. It is a physical. It has a physical presence. And although we always associate the term sign with a road sign or a warning sign, in semiotics, signs can be referred to something that can be interpreted as having a meaning, which is something other than itself. Therefore, any unit of language can also be considered as a sign, since they are used to designate objects or phenomenon of reality. The words we speak, speak and write can be called as signifiers, and since they are material forms of sign, however, a signifier cannot exist without a signified. Signified is the mental concept associated with a sign. In other words, it is the concept meaning. It is the concept meaning of meaning or a thing that is associated with the signified. If we look at the linguistic example, the word closed, in reference to an open or closed sign that is displayed on a shop, and the sign consists, like, the signifier, the word closed will be the signifier, and the signified concept would be something like the shop is closed for business, right? And Saucer emphasized that the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary, meaning there is no signifier. Meaning there is no inherent connection between the two. For example, there is nothing about the sound of dog or the letters dog that inherently means it's a four-legged animal that barks, right? So rather, this is a relationship. This relationship is established and maintained through a social convention and a language use. So Saucer also distinguished between langue and parole, or langue and speech, language and speech. So langue is refers to the abstract system of language, and that is shared by the community of shared by a community of speakers, while parole is referred to the individual instances of a speech that uses that system. So overall, Saucer's theory of sign emphasizes the importance of language as a social and cultural construct, and has had a significant impact on the fields of linguistics and semiotics. Moving on, we have looking into the semiotics point of view of Charles Sanders Peirce. Charles Sanders Peirce is an American logician, philosopher, mathematician, scientist, born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Charles Sanders Peirce's explanation of sign is based on his theory of semiotics, which is believed was fundamental to human cognition and communication. Peirce defined a sign as something which stands to somebody for something in some respect or capacity. And Peirce drew out three aspects of this definition. That is, from the diagram you can see that it's representment, object, and interpretant. And a representment is not necessarily physical, but it's a form of the sign. And interpretant will be the sense made of the sign in the mind of an observer, right? And an object is that which the sign refers to, right? And when these three parts come together, it is known as a semiotic triad, and together they form a sign. As mentioned before, the meaning is not directly attached to the sign. Instead, it is mediated through the interaction between the representment, the interpretant, and the object. Peirce referred to this as the process of semiosis, and from the figure we can see how the lines connect together to present a sign, right? And as a whole, it is known as semiosis. As an example, Microsoft Windows blue screen of death. The blue screen of death will be considered as the representment. When a user encounters such error code, he or she may think that their computer has been crashed, and the understanding that the computer has been crashed will be the interpretant, right? And our action to solve that problem, which is usually control alt delete, which is what we usually do to reboot the machine, will be known as the object, right? And especially important in this it's important in this model of the sign is the presence of interpretant as an explicit content, as an explicit component. Since the interpretant is created by the observer, the object is not given but it's inferred, and this makes a sign's meaning highly dependent on the context. With two different interpretant, a single representment or token can have two different meanings. Similarly, a single object can be represented by two different tokens. In both the cases, we are dealing with two different signs, right? And peers believe that a sign could be divided into three categories based on the relationship between the sign, object, and the interpretant, which is a symbol, icon, and index. So a symbol is basically symbol is basically the signs that are conventionally associated with their objects through social or cultural agreements, such as words or other linguistic symbols. And an icon is when the sign that resembles and imitates their object in some way, such as a photograph or a map, right? And an index will be the sign that are directly connected to the object through some physical or casual relationships, such as smoke, or indicating fire or fever, or indicating illness. And from the slide we can see I've taken the example of a dog, and in the symbol example is when the dog is written out in words, and an icon I've presented a dog in his physical presence, and in the index will be the paw prints of a dog, which is connected to the object it is basically indirectly connected to it, but we can understand that it is related to the dog, and it's the dog's paw print. Peers believe that the signs were essential to all human thought and communication, and that they operated at many levels, from basic sensory perception to complex conceptual thinking. And he also believed that the interpretations of signs was never completely fixed or final, but rather involved on ongoing process of inquiry and exploration. The next topic we'll be looking at is denotations and connotations. So denotation refers to the literal or dictionary definition of a word or a phrase. So it is the objective, precise, and ambiguous meaning of a word that can be found in the dictionary or other reference source. For example, the denotation of the word apple is a round fruit with red or green skin and white juicy interior, right? And a connotation, on the other hand, refers to the association's emotion or cultural meaning that are associated with a word or phrase beyond its literal definition. It is the subjective and the context dependent meaning of a word that can vary from a person to person or a culture to culture. For example, the word apple may have positive connotations of health, nutrition, and natural goodness, or a negative connotations of spoiled or it being a rotten fruit, right? Connotations can be influenced by a variety of factors, including historical and cultural context, personal experience, emotional associations, and they can also change over time as social attitudes and values change, right? For example, in this image we can see the image denotes the movie star Marilyn Monroe, but the image connotes that she is glamorous, stardom, and presents the sexuality and the beauty of the person, right? In conclusion, the semiotics is a complex, multifaceted theory of science developed by Charles Sanders and Saucer. And it is based on the idea that signs are fundamental to human cognition and communication, and that they can be analyzed and understood through their relationships with their objects and interpretants. Semiotic distinguishes between three types of signs: icon, indices, and some symbols, based on the nature of their relationship with their object. It also recognizes the importance of how interpretants or the subjective meaning created by the viewers on experience and social context. Semiotics has had a significant impact on a wide range of fields, including linguistics, philosophy, anthropology, and communication studies. It has provided a framework for the understanding the ways in which meaning is created and communicated through language, symbols, and other forms of signification. However, semiotics is not without its limitation and criticism. Some scholars have argued that it can be overly focused on the language and symbols at the expense of other forms of communications and meaning making. And others have criticized the theory for its complexity and the difficulty in the application. Overall, semiotic remains an important and influential theory in the study of meaning and communication, and it continues to inspire new research and insights into the ways in which signs shape our understanding of the world around us. These are the discussion questions that I've written. How do we interpret symbols and other forms of non-verbal communications, and what role does semiotics play in helping us understand these forms of communication? Why is it important to be aware of the signs and symbols used in media and advertising? What message might be conveyed through these signs and symbols? How might an understanding of semiotics help us to better understand the cultural values and the beliefs of a particular group of society? Um, Thank you so much, guys.